What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Game of the Year 2020 Awards Showcase Spectacular here at Rocket Punch. This is episode 5 here. I am Cameron, of course. Seth is with me as well. We're back to talk to you guys more about our favorite games of the year 2020.
I don't know about this category, if it's about our favorite things or games.
Well, I'm talking about an overarching theme here.
The theme, yes.
The theme of Game of the Year in general. But no, guys, episode 5 is biggest fail. I make sure you have your largest jug of salt ready because it is going to flow like never before here in this. This is the episode where it tends to lean on the negative part, and there tends to be more rants than normal. I think that would be safe to say, Seth.
Yeah. But this is therapy, Cameron. This is therapy for us.
Yeah, I agree. After the year we've had, this should be a little lethargic for us to finally discuss our grievances and our problems this year and stuff in the gaming industry. But guys, let's get right into it here. A quick update as well for people in case you're jumping through all these episodes out of order. This is part of our 10-part series here at Rocket Punch for Game of the Year 2020. We're going to be streaming and pushing all of our content out throughout the entire year. Or the entire month of January 2021, kind of talking and reflecting on all the games and events from 2020. This is part 5, of course. If you want to listen to the previous parts, you can do so by heading over to youtube.com/rocketpunchgo. You can watch the video format of that, or you can listen to it on the podcast services over on your podcast service of choice, where the audio-only versions will be available. For each of these 10 episodes, Seth and I have chosen 2 runners-up and a winner in each of those respective categories, and then we'll bounce back and forth talking about those, and then after we declare our winners, we will give our honorable mentions out there. So it should be a whole lot of fun. And also, guys, remember, if you want to make your voice heard and participate, make sure you head over, either check the show notes or find us on Twitter at Rocket Punch Go or at Darth Turner to be a part of our People's Choice Awards polls, where you can put in your vote and your ballot and your opinion on some of our awards categories, and especially some special ones that we're not going to talk about on the podcast that you guys can vote for. So definitely be on the lookout for that. That will be available for you guys to vote in all month up until January 24th, when we will be live streaming the finale and make our picks for Game of the Year right here on twitch.tv/Rocket Punch Live. So it should be a whole lot of fun.
Before we start, I have a thing.
Uh-huh.
This category in particular, you grazed on it, but I'm going to go ahead and peel back that, and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. But this category is biggest fail. We're going to talk about a lot of things that didn't go quite as planned in gaming this year. Please understand that we love video gaming. We love the people who make games. We love the content creators who make content about the games, and we love people that love games. So we're going to talk about a lot of critical things. We're going to share a lot of, like you said, use the word rant. I'm going to call them editorials about critical editorial about some things that have happened this year. But please bear in mind, we love gaming. We love the people that make them and the people that play them. So please don't think that anything we say is going to be necessarily an attack on on certain individuals. But we share our opinions here. Like I said, it is therapy. It helps us survive and cope with these. But also, we hope to learn from this and hopefully not have these mistakes happen again.
But also, when you mess up, we're going to call you on it.
Yes, because if there's one thing that is as funny to watch as people succeeding, it is more funny to watch people fail pretty hard.
We do get a lot of laughs out of that. So
we get a lot of laughs.
Without further ado, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversations about this, and let me get my water here because I get to go first this time.
You are first this time.
Hold on, let me grab.
You can see I got my Deathwing cup.
Oh yeah,
which might be suitable because many people will say that Cataclysm was the beginning of the end for WoW. And so it would have been considered a contender for biggest fail that year, I believe. However,
possibly depends. But let's get into it, guys. First, we're going to bounce back and forth discussing our runners up, and one of my runners up for biggest fail. I'm looking at this real quick to make sure there's nothing else. No, I want to talk about this because this is a little bit layered. This wasn't like an immediate bomb. This was like over a couple of months, kind of layered.
The best fails are that way, Cameron.
Oh, well, it depends on the fail.
Oh, you're right.
It does depend on the fail. It's the reason why this is a runner-up and not the winner. The Halo Infinite gameplay reveal is one of my biggest fails. And it's I will say that it slides in as a runner-up. I'm not going to say like it's an emphatic runner-up because I tend to be on the positive side and I'm thinking about some of the other stuff and my mindset. But I actually actively tried not putting this on the list, but I ended up putting it on the list for a couple of different reasons. So, reenacting the saga that was Halo Infinite, a game that I was very excited to see. I know we had talked about it before earlier in the year, Seth. Like I was like, okay, Halo Infinite's coming out this year. It's real weird that we haven't seen much of this game. It's real concerning to me that it's March. It's real concerning to me that it's May. We haven't seen anything from this game other than some teaser trailers, no gameplay and whatnot. And in August, in one of the couple of kind of Xbox game, showcases, I believe that's what they were called, we finally got a chance to see. That was like, it was the first thing they showed in this specific showcase is Halo Infinite gameplay. They told you it's gonna be here. It's gonna be awesome, and we finally got it's like 20 minutes. I think it's 20 minutes. We got this nice big gameplay reveal, and I will say I was not as hard on the graphical fidelity of what was shown compared to a lot of other outlets and a lot of other people in the industry. I will say it wasn't. I don't think it was the best showing for like the Xbox Series X or Halo in general. There were a couple of things that I looked like still needed some polish, some stuff that still could have done, could have had some touch ups. So good. It was good. It wasn't great, but again, it continued to concern me that it's August. This game is supposed to come out in November with the Xbox Series S and X. And we're just now getting gameplay. And it really concerned me a lot, especially kind of putting those two together. I'm like, ooh, I'm a little concerned here. But this was touted as like, this is a game. It's going to launch day and date with the console. I was like, dude, this is going to be so awesome. I can't wait to see what's going to happen because like an Xbox system with a Halo game, now that Halo is in. When Combat Evolved came out with the original Xbox, people were like, I don't know about that, it looks cool. But now it's in. People know about Halo. They know about Master Chief. I'm super like, yeah, let's do it. But then I like the general consensus. I'm not going to say it wasn't universal, but like the general consensus from people after watching the Infinite gameplay trailer was like, it was not good. It really, especially with trailers from all the other games that we've seen, it really didn't showcase or feel very next gen. They had like a couple of, I don't remember the harpoon on the arm was like a new feature that's in the Halo games, but other than that, it really looked kind of the same. I'm not going to get too far into the discussion on like art style, because I think we've had that discussion on the show before, because Halo Infinite does take a different art style from the previous games like Halo 4 and Halo 5. Not to say it doesn't look any better or worse, but I think that the art style they chose really, in the way kind of the unpolished look the game had, in my opinion, really didn't showcase its fidelity off that a lot of people wanted. I know the Digital Foundry had a bunch of breakdowns. People had a lot of videos and stuff. People were not happy with how Halo Infinite looked. And I don't necessarily blame them with a game that you finally get gameplay shown a couple of months before its release. There. I think the big thing and the great thing we got from that reveal was Craig the Brute. I think that's fair to say. Craig was awesome.
Craig is a legend.
He will now become legend.
He has become legend.
Multiple layers on that one there.
Layers.
But going even further, and I said this kind of kind of spread out over a couple of months. Immediately after that, or I would say immediately, like a week or so after that gameplay reveal, when they got that feedback, I'm looking at the post by 343 Industries studio head Chris Lee about, hey, we're going to pull the game back, and we're going to, we've heard your guys' feedback, we're going to take the game back, and we're going to polish it a little bit more. And specifically, especially in this one, they... hold on, make sure I'm getting my calendars right. Yeah, no,
I have a timeline pulled up, so if you need me to reference timeline, I can get you, my friend.
After that, they basically, Chris Lee came out and said, we have to, in a huge, like, whoa, but also, when I really thought about it, I'm like, I kind of expected it. They delayed the game. They said, we have to shift our release to 2021. We heard the feedback that you guys had, as is with many studios and game delays this past year, COVID impacting stuff. And I remember us even having this conversation, Seth, like, we figured that COVID was a part of it, but we were both kind of under the impression that COVID really wasn't the big factor in the delay here. Yeah. And we really think that we thought at the time that, the reaction to the gameplay trailer and the comments that were made and kind of the work that was done and the feedback they got, they were very much like, we have to delay this game. It's got to get delayed. And that, number one, that's a hard blow for a big studio like Microsoft to, you've said it multiple times. We've seen it throughout this entire year. Halo Infinite, they've rolled promotional campaigns for Halo Infinite, even though the game's not out, because they expected this game to be out with the Xbox Series X this November. But because of the issues with that showcase, with Halo Infinite and the way the game looked and the way it was received by fans and people looking at it, we got to push it. They can't have another, I don't want to say goose egg, but another bad launch like they did with the Master Chief Collection and all the technical issues and bugs that had with that game. And so,
Cameron,
go ahead.
I want to let you know something. So you had mentioned something earlier. We were discussing whether or not this was COVID, right?
Yes.
It's a COVID issue if you delay the game, right? It's probably an issue related to COVID. However, as long as the director isn't let go, it's not a development issue.
That's true. Wait, hold on a second. Pulling back the layers here. A couple of months after that, Chris Lee, the studio head, is gone. He leaves the project.
Okay.
And the fact that this game is so far in development and we're getting close to the finish line, and now after this, the studio head is gone. And I talked about it when I talked about BioWare and the executives leaving over in Biggest Impact. I think this was a big deal, and it really had concerns for me on Halo Infinite, but it made me feel good at least that they said they're going to delay it somewhere in 2021, and kind of as we were getting this news, we were like, it's probably going to be next fall. Let's be honest, because it looks like, it really looked like there was a lot more work that needed to be done. Not only from feedback, but, other stuff we probably don't know about. And luckily, Microsoft is able to take that, I say small blow on the chin, just because I think that it would have given the Series X an extra bump in having that game available at launch with the console. But now we have to wait, like we don't have enough games to play, until 2021 to play Halo Infinite, which I'm totally fine with. I think a lot of Halo fans are of the same mindset. Nobody really liked the showing in August, but if they need another year or so in order to get the game exactly where it needs to be and have it polished up and ready to go, I'm going to use my Phil Spencer finger quotes here, because this is a fun fact. I always like watching Phil Spencer, because I always like what he does with his hands, where he does and this is why this is why here at Xbox we're really excited. I love it.
Yep. But you got it right now, buddy.
And I want, if they need the extra time, that's perfect. But I think the big reason it's on my biggest fail is the fact, the showing, the fact that you waited that long to show gameplay. You got to that point and surprised it wasn't received very well, especially with a game coming out in a few months. Then eventually, I mean, I don't think it's an understatement to say your marquee title for your next-gen console launch gets delayed because of that feedback, and then your studio head leaves. And I think there was a lot of balls dropped across the aisle there. But the reason, again, on that flip side, the reason it's one of my runners-up and not my top pick is because that Microsoft, you're going to laugh at this, had the courage, wink, to delay arguably their biggest title right now and say, you know what, we'll push that out and we'll give you the time you need. We'll lay back on Game Pass. And that's what they're doing. And you still got a lot of other first-party games that are going to be coming up throughout the year, and they're going to be available on Game Pass. I got reminded about it. I'm waiting for the Medium. I'm really excited to play the Medium. I'm like, ooh, give it to me. And that's going to be on Game Pass here this month in January. So I'm really excited to see that. But that is my main gripes and the main reasons why I add the Halo Infinite gameplay reveal as one of my runners-up for biggest fail. And I say that, as you talked about at the beginning, I say that unfortunately. Like, I didn't want this to be on the list, but really thinking about my other honorable mentions, which I'll talk about later, like this one earned a spot as one of my runners-up, just because of, how big this game and how planned this launch was, down to the promotional material, and the fact that we don't have that. That didn't happen because of some of the problems they've seen so far on a game that I'm assuming 343 has been working on at least for 4 or 5 years. So
yeah, I got a couple of things to point out that I'd like to kind of add on. So first off, and I'm a little concerned about this category might be this way, but that was also my first runner-up.
No way!
It is my first runner-up was the Halo, and I called it the Halo Infinite debacle because it is truly a series of unfortunate events. But I want to point out, so I'm going to use my time to kind of talk a little bit about my thoughts, especially being a person who loves Xbox and have a deep connection with the Halo franchise.
Yes, please.
I will say this, Cameron. I am thoroughly convinced that if Halo Infinite had launched this year, it would have won this category for both of us. I think that game was...
Oh, wow.
Definitely... It belongs on this list because I do think that it had an impact on not just the Halo franchise, like people, want to play the new game, but also the Xbox Series X and the Series S launching without a marquee first-party title to really drive... I'll say a new marquee first-party title to really drive that tech discussion, right? To talk about what this thing can do. Gears got an awesome upgrade. Sea of Thieves got an amazing upgrade. Tons of games got upgraded. But one of the things that reviewers kept talking about is like, it's awesome to see these games on here look so amazing and load so quickly, but these are also games I've been playing for over a year, right? So you look at their competitors coming out with Spider-Man, Demon's Souls, all these, top-notch games. There's a reason I think that a lot of people are, like, a lot of the discussion around wanting to get a new console, can't find them, is PlayStation right now because there's just more stuff there.
Well, and that was one of the conversations I know we had like way back in the summer when these showcases were going on, was like, dude, what if we get the Xbox and Halo versus the PlayStation and Spider-Man? Like, yes. Ding, ding, ding.
Clash of the Titans.
Let's go.
And at the end of the day, I think there's a lesson to be learned about like console releases here, because like Spider-Man Miles Morales, I kind of equate to like the Far Cry off games like Blood Dragon, Far Cry Primal, and Far Cry I think New Dawn or something. That they take the existing map, they reskin it, and they add a new story to it, right? That's kind of what they did, and I think that's a safe bet, and I think that is something that was probably a smart move to not try and like push Spider-Man 2 to get done before this thing came out, right? So I digress. This is not a discussion about that. This is about Halo. But when you look at this timeline, Cameron, it is rapid reactions. Like, it is within a week, there is the blog post. And honestly, I was having like BioWare PTSD about the Casey Hudson
Oh
blog post,
no!
right?
Oh
And you get
no!
it's a week after the showcase. This is the big game, and they're having to basically publish the apology article, right? And talk about, we're working on it. That was a alpha build, and everyone's trying to explain why it looked that way, right? The answer is why it looked that way is because that's the way they wanted it to look. And so that answer finally comes out about a month or so later when Chris exits exits the project, right? And now I can't remember the name of the gentleman that was put in his place, but he was a veteran of the. If you could look it up, that would be very helpful.
Yeah,
but he is now in charge of Halo Infinite's development. He is
Staten.
He said
I think it's Joe Staten or something like that.
Joe Staten. Thank you. Yes,
Joseph Staten.
that's him. So
that's him.
he is a veteran all the way back to Halo Combat Evolved, up through Halo Reach. So definitely he has the chops to do it, and I think he's going to help get this thing through the finish line. But the thing about the Halo Infinite delay that really just I guess kind of shook me, and is, as a huge fan of Xbox, is the reason I don't have a Series X right now, is just because it was the thing. It was the killer app. It is the thing that you want the thing to play, right? Like, you want it to play that game. And I asked myself, dude, I've had three opportunities to buy a Series X where I had it. It was in stock. It was in my cart. And I had that moment where I was like, do I need this now? Like, is this going to benefit me to have this now versus 6, 7, 8 months from now, when they're going to be silently fixing, making things a little bit more reliable on them, getting stock out there, and like, am I benefiting right now? And the answer is nah, I'm not really, because I'm playing everything I want on Xbox Game Pass for PC. I'm playing everything that I want only on Xbox on my One X, because it still works just well. And then, I've got a lot of cool stuff to play on PlayStation in the meantime. So I didn't feel the urge, being an Xbox fan. That's a problem. That is a huge problem, right? And I don't think it's a problem that's like going to end Microsoft or end the Xbox brand, because at the end of the day, I'm still subscribed to Game Pass.
Yeah.
I still love my Xbox journey, my gamer's journey through Xbox. But yeah, definitely Halo Infinite's delay had an impact on the excitement about these new console launches. Now, I would say that the new consoles themselves have an issue with excitement, considering everyone's afraid to launch something only on them. Like, everyone is like, oh no, don't worry, 100 million people who have the other console, we're still including you, despite the fact that it is probably Cyberpunk going up the game. But all in all, like, I think that this really didn't help. It didn't help spur excitement for it. And it's just, it was a bummer, dude. Like, at the end of the day, I think it belonged in this category because it was a fail. Mistakes were made, but it was also just one of those, like, man, this really bums me out. Like as a fan of Halo, I remember looking at it, and you kind of get that same feeling that you get. You've probably had this before when you're watching a disaster kind of happen, where you're like, maybe it's not that bad. And then you go back like a day later and you watch it again, and you're like, yeah, that doesn't look really good. and you start to have to come to terms with it, right? And I don't think that anybody intentionally did that. I think that they did their very best to get an asset, a gameplay trailer, or gameplay segment that we could look at that was representative of what they were working on. I just think that what they were working on was not the right direction. And so I don't think this is an issue of quality. I've heard a lot of discussion around 343, really struggling with the Halo franchise. No, they're not. Like, Halo 4, Cameron, you love that campaign, right? One of the best Halo campaigns.
It's the best Halo campaign in a numbered Halo game. Fight me.
Yeah.
Come
Halo,
to me. Let's go.
Yeah. And Halo 5 had its faults, but that game looked amazing, right? I think Warzone was really doing some innovative things, and I think that despite its flaws on the narrative side, the multiplayer was pretty fun. You look at Master Chief Collection, they've really turned that thing around and made it a fantastic time capsule to preserve the Halo legacy, right? And so now we're looking forward to the future. I want Halo Infinite to be that moment where Halo comes back into the conversation, where Call of Duty, Battlefield, and Halo. Those were always the big three, right? And now I feel like it's Call of Duty, and their battle royale and Fortnite and their battle royale. Like, I don't want them to be trying to compete with them any longer. I want them to be a new seat at the table where it's like, hey, you know what? Go do battle royales. Where we dropping, boys? Pick up armor. Sure. We are the arena shooter that is competitive, Twitch trigger, like super fun to play, high action, high octane. That's what I want from Halo Infinite in its multiplayer side. And then from the story side, you said, Halo 4 had one of the coolest and most interesting narrative campaigns, I think, in the whole, Halo franchise. You think about like what they were doing with Cortana. It's really interesting. Infinite is probably where they're going to tie all that stuff up, right? And I want to see the epic conclusion to that saga. And it sucks that it's gotten delayed, but I think this was a great example of good crisis control on Microsoft's part. Certain things were already in motion. You can still buy your Mountain Dew and Monster Energy with the bonus XP, and they're even marketing like bank it for later. Like you can bank the double XP for when it comes out. But I am very excited for the day where we can.
I have the Halo Nerf gun, and inside the Halo Nerf gun had this coupon for Halo Infinite for a game add-on code that I can use to redeem. But guess what? I can't do it yet because the game's not out.
Don't show that code on stream. But anyways, so yeah, that was my first one. So we'll kind of just tag team back to you in just a second here. But it's a bummer. But like I said, I think that their decision to delay it was the right one. Because I think that if they had tried to launch that game looking and playing like it was, it could have topped this list. So this is a situation of the lesser of, the minimum, the path of least destruction, we'll say, was delaying the game. Yes, it's going to hurt a little bit in the short term Xbox Series X discussion. But at the end of the day, no Halo right now is a lot better than, boy, Series X is not looking great with this not great Halo game. Because Halo cannot be meh. It has to be top tier. It cannot be meh. It has to be top tier. So take your time. But that whole situation was pretty rough.
Yeah.
That is also my runner-up.
Wow. If you have this other runner-up that I have, then I'm going to walk out of the room because I'm going to feel like you cheated and looked at my phone.
Well, one more thing before you go in. This was a year that progressively, it surprised me how stupid this year was from a fails perspective. Like, there were things that happened early in the year that I was like, oh, dude, that's a disaster. Like, there's no way that like, this is going in biggest fail, right? Like, this is the shoe-in for winner. And boy, we got surprised as time went on and things happened and new developments about existing situations came out. What a year. It's like ogres are like onions. So is 2020. You just peel back the layers of
more and more fun.
Not great things. So
my other runner-up in biggest fail is one word, Seth. Pre-orders. Motherfucking pre-orders. Let me tell you, like, 2020 sucked. COVID, all sorts of other shit, murder hornets, California fires. You can take your pick. I don't know. But the one joy we were supposed to have this fall was next gen. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X. I'm even going to pull the PC gamer crowd in here. NVIDIA GeForce RTX 30 series cards, AMD Ryzen 3. Whoa, it's going to be great. We're going to be able to experience next gen like never before. If only, hopefully, nothing stops us from experiencing that. Oh, guess what? Bots. Scalpers and bots that came through. Number one, that's one of the facets there of just like the fact that, yes, COVID has some type of play into this because some of those factories got closed and it did kind of put a constraint on what they were able to build in time for launch. But the fact that when these things were released and available, it was, if you went online to try and buy them, it was basically, okay, 1 minute, get ready. It's 12 o'clock, refresh. It goes from not available to sold out.
Yep.
What? That makes it, it even as of this recording in early January, you still can't buy AMD processors. The Ryzen 3 processors, they're hard to come by. You still can't buy, barely can come by any of the NVIDIA cards. If you want a Founders Edition, you can fucking forget it. But if you want like a reference card, or maybe from a third party like EVGA or Gigabyte, you might have a chance depending on some of the stuff they're doing. And PlayStation 5 consoles and Xbox Series X and S consoles, it's a roll of the dice. Like, you just got to be on the computer every day around a certain amount of time to check and see whenever stock is replenished. And it sucks so much for a lot of these gamers, especially who, taking it back a little bit, who were excited about getting maybe a next-gen system or a piece of computer hardware for Christmas or for the holidays, because maybe that's the one time they can save up money to get that, and they can't because there are people that decide, hey, let's go ahead and get the 10 that are available, let's buy them ourselves, and then we'll flip them on the black market for double the price. Just because we can. And it's fucking stupid, it sucks, and I hate the people that do that maliciously, or just do it. I don't know, there's not a good way of doing that. You for people who do that, shame on you, it's bullshit, but that and the scalper, like the bots that clearly prevent people, and I give online retailers some slack. Bots have become pretty sophisticated, but I think on the other side as well, I think bots have been a thing long enough for people to know we need to have measures against them. Those guys should know, like, okay, we've got a limited stock. We know that this is in very high demand. We know that there's a good chance we're going to have, especially after like the first hot item clearly got hit with bots, that people should have been like, oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's prepare ourselves for this. And they really have done a lackluster job at that. The fact that specifically on the console front, that PlayStation said, hey, we're going to, the PlayStation 5 is going to be available to pre-order starting tomorrow. But retailers said, fuck that shit, we're going to roll it right now. And we don't care. Good luck, everybody.
Yep.
And we're like, dude, that is a fucking shitty way of doing that. That's garbage, dude, blah, blah, blah. Sony, what's going on with your communication with your manufacturers, whatnot. And then Microsoft comes and says, oh, don't worry, guys, we're going to start at 8 a.m. on Monday. You're going to be able to get it. Guess what? You still go in. Let me wake up at 7:55 on Monday to get my Series X. Still can't get it because of bots and scalpers and whatnot. And so it's that same conversation, and I hate it so much that, I was lucky enough to get a Series X. I was lucky enough to have a great friend, Seth, to get me a PlayStation 5, so I have both those systems. But I still, I would love a 3080 graphics card. I still don't have. Because I want a Founders Edition card, and those are basically fucking Ark of the Covenant. You barely find the thing anywhere. I don't know. It's.
Does that mean when you open it up that it melts everyone's face if you look at it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
It's surprisingly the difficulty it was. I understand it was COVID, but the difficulty it's been for a lot of gamers and a lot of consumers, honest consumers that have gotten their either hard-earned money or their stimulus checks to get these tech products, ready to buy them to help stimulate the economy in some way, cannot, because there are people that are just greedy fools that want to keep all the money for themselves. And I'll keep that one short and sweet because I think we're all in agreement on that one. That is why that is one of my runners-up for biggest fail. The pre-ordering of these next-gen technologies and systems has just been abysmal, and it, to some extent, is still slightly abysmal, slightly less abysmal now than it was back in the holiday time frame. So,
you'll be pleased to note that we did not share that one.
Oh God, okay, thank you.
That was one of my honorable mentions, so I'll just mark that one off. But I want to add on to your thoughts about it, because I think that first off, if you do this, you are what's wrong with humans. You are not a good person if you choose to scalp. And when, I know you'll probably laugh all the way to the bank if you or someone does this. You'll be like, ha ha ha, I make money. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And scalping products like this is definitely high up there on the not illegal, but pretty damn scummy scale of things. And yeah, no one's gonna arrest you, no one's going to get in trouble, but
You will be judged harshly.
you will be judged. And yeah, if karma swings back on you in a bad way, I'm not be like, oh, I'm a console scalper, but now I got heartburn. I'm like, dude, hope it's chronic. It's one of those things where it's just not a great experience. You're shitting on other people's good time for a quick buck, right? And that's just lame. However, Cameron, one of my signature moves is to unleash the spiciness, right? I got hot takes.
I'm ready.
I'm not Jedi Master Turner. I'm Darth Turner, all right? So I'm here to hit you with some dark side fact.
All right.
If this console rollout has taught me anything, it is that retailers, and when I say retailers, I'm talking specifically Walmart, Best Buy, maybe Target, but Target's been a little bit better. Like, I've actually had the opportunity to buy things through Target because they're keeping it locked into the app. Their app is very good with Apple Pay and things like that, so it's easy to buy things quick. But specifically Walmart, Best Buy, and Amazon. Sorry, I was like, there's one more I missed. I don't think that they deserve the allocations that they get. If it were me, if you said, Seth, okay, well, all right, fuck it, Seth, fix it. How would you do it? Here's what I would do. All the retailers would get a 30% allocation of the stock. This is what Apple does, by the way. I can't confirm these exact percentages, but if you want to buy an iPhone, the best way to buy it is from Apple. I've said this again on other episodes, so I'm a broken record at this point. However, the difference between buying a phone from Apple and buying a phone from AT&T or any other place, and I'm going to use this for consoles as well, is Walmart doesn't care about your happiness or enjoyment. They care about one thing and one thing only, and that is selling the thing, right? And as far as they're concerned, once they no longer have the thing to sell, who cares? Out of luck, right? Our website can't support that load. Who cares? We only deal with this once every couple of years.
You reminded me of the Stephen A. Smith meme that people use a lot, and where he like comes up and just like all I have to say is, we don't care.
Exactly.
We don't care.
They don't care because let's say, for example, they get 10,000 consoles. If they sell 10,000 consoles in 5 seconds to bots, awesome. We sold our allotment. That's all that matters to them. So they are not incentivized to spend any time building out features to help people like that. However, Microsoft and Sony are financially incentivized to be the best place to buy, because when you buy direct from them, you are cutting out the middleman, right? And if there's one thing the internet is letting people do, it is cut out the middleman. If you want to be an entertainer, you no longer need to sign with a giant studio to try and get a TV show on cable television. Live stream on Twitch. If you're funny, people will give you money, and you now own your personality and your vision, right? Same goes here. If I want to go to Apple's website the day an iPhone comes out and buy it, now Apple will very clearly say, you're not getting this shit for a couple months, but you are getting one. That is the biggest difference between buying direct from a retailer and buying from a actual first-party organization, right? Because a retailer doesn't care. They only want to sell their allowance, because once they sell their allowance, their job's done, right? They maximize their job, right? So their job is to sell the most product at the least money. And so if they could get away with having a shitty website that just said, buy here, and that was built for bots to scalp, they do it because that's what helps them. However, Microsoft and Sony want to make sure that you have a great experience. So Sony, I think, has done a better job of this by creating this like digital queue that you get into, and you have to actually wait in a digital line. Now, as stupid as that sounds, it works. You haven't heard about them getting bot hit, but I think the biggest difference is if they would just take allocation away from those retailers and focus on making the Microsoft Store or the PlayStation Store the best place to buy, and making those stores designed for that heavy load, where, you know what, we're going to let you buy a Series X or a PlayStation 5 right now, and we're going to set an expectation for when we expect that console to be made and shipped, right? That is what Apple does with the iPhone. It is very successful. They will tell you 8 weeks from now, your phone is going to be made, and as soon as it's made, it's going to be shipped directly to you. And those phones ship directly out of those, they ship straight from China to you. They don't come to any kind of warehouse first, right? I remember going to buy some PlayStation 5 accessories at Walmart, and the lady that works there straight up told me, we have consoles in the back, but we're not allowed to sell them till Black Friday. This was before Black Friday, obviously.
Yeah.
Horrible buying experience. I am a designer. I spend 8 hours a day minimum thinking about the best experience for a user to have. That is the worst experience for the user to have. That is a suit and tie experience through and through. Oh, we got to save it Black Friday, so they'll come in and buy some shitty ass DVDs. It's like that cigar chomping CEO thing. So what I want to see is reduce their allocations. You should punish them, because at the end of the day, you don't need them anymore. They're important to you, but many people said that you remember the days of GameStop threatening to stop selling Xboxes because it came with a digital code for Titanfall or whatever it was, or PlayStations came with digital code for something. They literally opened them and took the code out and put the physical game in so they could get that. They can't do that anymore. They're on the verge of bankruptcy, right? Like, the world has changed, and I want these purchases, and I think NVIDIA is the worst about this. Like, can you even buy a card from NVIDIA? Probably not. If you can, it's probably not a great experience.
So I'll give Best Buy at least a little bit of credit. So NVIDIA basically said if they shut down their store, like you could, but they said we're not selling them through the store anymore. They're allocating specifically to Best Buy. If you want a Founders Edition card, you have to go through Best Buy. And Best Buy has a setup in their system where if you try and buy a card, whenever it comes in stock, when you click Add to Cart, it instantly pops up with a message saying, hey, we're doing things differently. The button is frozen. And in a set, an undetermined amount of time, it will become available again, and you'll need to click Add to Cart again in order to put it in there. So that way, for all those bots that just immediately go to the page and click the button once to go to the Add to Cart, they can't do that.
Okay,
and that's clever. That has helped a little bit, but I really haven't, and some people now are starting to get some strategies in place, but like that, there's still progress can be made on there.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm not going to rant too much about this much longer, but that whole situation, I agree, was very bad and should definitely be looked at.
Yeah. That's my other runner-up. Seth, you're up.
All right. Well, mine's interesting because my second runner-up for biggest fail of 2020 is something we've talked about in a previous episode, but I think it belongs here, and that is the Ames versus Apple court case.
Okay.
That is, I'm going to say, ignited this year and will continue to burn through the next couple of years as we see it petty, bickering go back and forth, right? We've already gotten some gems. Now listen, Cameron, you know that the gif of the guy that's got the popcorn and the chair in his hand and he walks out and sets the chair up and basically that is I'm the Michael Jackson in Thriller eating the popcorn happily when I see giant multi-billion-dollar companies fight with each other. But this one in particular, I gotta tell you, it was magical for me to watch this unfold. And this unfolded over the course of 24 hours, Cameron. So I woke up in the morning, pulled out my phone to look at my Twitter output, right? And I saw Epic Games reveals new Fortnite direct billing option and read about it. It's basically a debit card. It's like Walmart Pay. It's companies are tired of paying other companies to process transactions for them. So they're offering to do it themselves in exchange for a higher cut of the profits. Now, Fortnite phrased this as we're giving you a discount on your V-Bucks. So they obviously pay Apple 30%, most other places 30%, and then they keep 70%. So their discount was for 20%. So they're actually getting 10% more dollars, but they're giving you a discount, so they were incentivizing people to do it. And as soon as I read this, I was like, wow, I wonder when they'll get kicked off of the App Store. And within 1 hour of me saying that, they were removed from the App Store. And I was like, that's when the popcorn came out. That's when all right, what are they going to do? Are they going to budge? Are they going to put it, are they going to take it back down? Because this was like a premeditated thing, right? Like they had rolled it out. The website was there. Oh, you thought it was premeditated. It was far more premeditated than that. So, of course, Epic has prepared a statement that is, well, Apple's wrong for doing that. Hashtag free Fortnite, including what you've referenced before, but this video that is a parody of the 1984 ad directed by Ridley Scott that, for many reasons, one of the most influential ads of all time. It made the Super Bowl ad slot valuable. It made Apple stand out as a company. It just was truly one of the most influential commercials of all time. And to take that and spin it around to weaponize kids against Apple was, wow.
I just shook my head like, oh boy. Most of the kids don't even know what the hell you're referencing.
Exactly. And so then this hashtag free Fortnite thing, they had this big Apple head guy that was a skin in the game. And it really just devolved to this kind of premeditated bickering, right? Like, and it would be different if it was like, oh, Apple's not servicing our community of players with disabilities or something. Like, it's not like a virtuous thing. It's literally like, we want more money and Apple won't give it to us. So go get them, kids. Tell your parents. Like, what a disaster, right? What a disaster, inside and out. And then it went on. There were statements exchanged, back and forths where Epic is like, well, Apple is stifling creativity and oppressing the smaller, game developers. And they're doing this hours after Apple's responses, right? They're being very reactive to Apple, almost like it was planned out. Well, a couple days later, Apple comes out and is like, hey, we're introducing a new program in 2021 where if you don't make $1 million, you are going to actually be paying less in those App Store fees. They reduced it from 30 to 15%, which is a 50% reduction. That's a huge reduction, up to $1 million. And I'm not a lawyer by any means, but that immediately destroys any type of discussion that Epic has. Now, Epic's mad because it obviously doesn't help them because...
No, not at all.
They generate... And I wish I had these stats with me, but like the stats about the App Store are, I think it's like 7% of developers on the App Store produce about 90% of the revenue. And Apple sent all this information out. And Apple has that data so that they're able to share it. And so basically what they were saying is that, hey, guess what? Epic, Spotify, Netflix, and Google probably make up 90% of the App Store's revenue, right? Like most of the money comes through those, one of those companies or Tencent or someone else, right? And Concerned Ape, we've incited that name, for Stardew Valley, is not one of those people that's making billions of dollars on this platform. So that would have been really valuable for him when he was first launching his game, right? Until he got to that $1 million threshold. And most games never reach that. In fact, I think Apple said that something like 94% never actually reached that $1 million threshold. So that's just going to be a 50%, sorry, not a 50%, a 15% increase to their take home, which is huge for game developers. What if I told you today, Cameron, hey, you don't have to do anything different. We're giving you a 15% raise. That would probably change your life, right? Like you would.
Whoa!
That's a huge. That's usually 5 to 10 years of work at a traditional company, and so just to get that out of nothing, that's definitely a nice move. So, bringing this back, this whole thing, and it continues, Cameron. It continues. They're having a tournament that's all focused around free Fortnite with the Apple head skin. It's wow. And that anytime someone's going to peck fun at Apple, who the secret dude, the Illuminati of Apple hate in the background pulling the strings is always Samsung. From the very beginning, it's been Samsung. And so, of course, the winner of this Fortnite tournament is going to win a fully decked out Samsung Note whatever 18S Galaxy squared.
Whatever.
I can't say much.
Note whatever,
Apple's naming is also ridiculous. But it's real petty, and it comes off as very tribalistic. And we've talked about this before. You should not have that mentality. Us versus Them will be the end of good. Like it is truly like all things in the world die when it's us versus them. So like the idea of them weaponizing kids, because let's be real, most of the people playing Fortnite is going to be minors, to try and push that agenda is really stupid in my opinion. But they decided to do it, and that is why that entire debacle gets my runner-up spot for biggest fail. Okay. I know you talked about this from a different perspective in one of our earlier categories, so I'm not going to spoil anything for those that maybe haven't listened, but you talked about it from a bit of a different perspective. Do you have any add-ons from the fail perspective?
Nope. Go listen to my conversation on it in one of the previous editions of the Game of the Year segments. And
probably not hard to find.
Yeah, it shouldn't be hard to find, but go listen to it. You can hear all my thoughts on this there. So.
I also have a big concern right now.
Okay.
That our number one is the same.
Okay, I will say my number one, and if it's the same, then we'll fusion dance and combine our conversation together.
Yeah. What would our fusion name be? I need to clarify that.
Boy, Cameron and Seth. Ooh. Kath, or
it would be Kath or Samron.
I like Samron.
Samron sounds cooler in my opinion.
I like Samron.
Okay. Super Saiyan Samron.
There you go.
That rolls off the tongue.
Ooh, that's nice. I like that. Triple S. Like
Triple S.
We're here. The biggest fail for 2020. What is it for me? I contrary to popular belief, I actually thought really hard about this. And at least looking at some of my other runners up, it's like Halo. I didn't want this to be my number one, but this is my number one. And the more I learned about this, the more it became my number one. My number one for biggest fail of 2020 is the Cyberpunk 2077 launch. Like it's is that what you picked? Is that
of course it is, Cameron.
Fusion dance. We're jumping in this. I'll intro this up as well because I've learned a lot, not even on purpose. I want to bring two specific voices into the conversation, and those voices are Michael Futter and Amanda Farrow. So you don't know who those people are. If you go listen to, this is also, Seth, this might actually be a good podcast for you to listen to, because I know stuff like this we like listening to, but the Virtual Economy podcast. They describe themselves as the business of games for the rest of us. So Michael and Amanda both they are the hosts for this podcast. To give credentials to them, Michael Futter has been in the gaming industry for 10 years. I'm reading his stuff from their website. He was a news editor at Game Informer. He teamed up with Bithell Games and authored the Game Dev Business Handbook and the Game Dev Budgeting Handbook. He's a freelance article writer for Polygon, Variety, Game Daily, and Games Beats. He's worked on multiple with AAA developers, doing all sorts of business strategies and whatnot. Amanda has spent the last 10 years writing about business, video games, dedicated speaker, decade of experience at a variety of conferences. She's talked at Games Beat Summit, Playcrafting's Women in Games event, Game Daily Connect, PAX East and West, and small business, digital marketing, and branding conferences. There is their latest episode as of this recording. It is episode 63. The title is CD Projekt burns bridges with partners, players, and its own future. And it was a lot more information than what we already knew about this entire saga. I'm going to try and be brief with the timeline here. Seth, please help me out if you don't. It's both of us. We're just going to talk.
This is our thing. Let's go. Let's go, brother. Let's go, brother.
Full stop. I think for gamers in the industry, Cyberpunk or CD Projekt Red has burned all of their goodwill that they had with The Witcher 3, it's gone. It's done with the release of Cyberpunk 2077. The fact,
like a bat out of hell, I'll be gone if the morning comes.
The fact that, you got this game was came out bug-riddled mess. And it wasn't that bad. It was, it was like, some bugs, I can't wait for the patches. If you're playing on PC, if you are playing on console, which, by the way, is if I'm not mistaken, from the numbers they released themselves, 40% of their pre-orders were for console, so almost half of your base. And let's not kid ourselves. As we've talked about before, a majority of those people are not playing on Series X or PlayStation 5. They're playing on base model Xbox One or base model PlayStation hardware, PlayStation 4. The game is unplayable. Full stop. The fact that you had, in leading up to this game, when reviews came out, we found out after the embargo lifted that some stipulations were made to the embargoes for people reviewing this game. Number one, all you got was the PC version of the game. That's kind of weird. Don't know why they didn't give us the console versions either. Number two, any footage that you used for your reviews, video or otherwise, had to be pre-captured B-roll from CD Projekt. That should have been red flags right there. Like, woo, 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 something's going on, something's weird. But of course, we're all excited. Fucking bought the collector's edition. This whole thing helped me at least reinforce the fact that, I feel a little bad that I bought the game, but the fact that at least I got it on PC and I didn't get it on console, thank God. But the game released, reviews were great. I remember I'm going to give a shout out because the Virtual Economy podcast shouted this out too. Callie Plagge over at GameSpot, who gave the PC version of this game a 7 because of the bugs, and people jumped on her like white on rice for until the story started to leak about the console versions and how bug riddled they were. And I'm like, ooh, okay, well, man, let me pull back. Let me pull back a little bit here. Maybe her criticism was warranted. The fact that people getting these console versions were basically unplayable, and the Virtual Economy podcast put something in perspective to me that I really didn't think about, Seth. And that part with this is that, imagine, if you will, all of this happens and haven't even talked about the refund policy. I'm actually going to let you talk about the whole refund policy, Seth, as I talk about the bugs and whatnot. But imagine the fact that it was only a week to pre-order and it ended on December 21st. What happens on December 25th? Christmas. So if you were a person, especially one of the probably large amount of people that were just excited about the game but maybe not be completely in tune with this game, who are buying this for yourself or maybe somebody else that has a base model console, and you bought this game as a Christmas gift, you were fucked. Because you're like, this game is crap, it's unplayable, they can't play it on their base system. They're not going to get another system, a next-gen system for Christmas because they're sold out, but I can't return this because it's a Christmas gift. So I return it and get them something else or figure something else out. What about the parents who were not knowledgeable at all, who gets their kid a PlayStation 4 copy of Cyberpunk 2077 and the kid opens it up at Christmas and knows what's going on with the game. And it's like, I can't, this game is unplayable on the system. And it is unacceptable and scummy that the process, the embargo lifting for the review was set up that way to show it in the best light, knowing full well, they knew full well. If I'm sure I'm pass that baton over to you, Seth, for a little bit.
That's fine.
They knew full well that the game was not going to run on consoles. And the podcast also brought this other good point as well. If you have an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5, Cyberpunk 2077 runs decently enough. You'll have some bugs, you'll have some issues, but you're still going to get some problems with it. That is not the next-gen version of that game. What does that mean? That means, as they pointed out, whenever the next-gen upgrade patch comes out, there's a good chance that it's going to take more resources away, because since it's a PS4 game on PlayStation 5 or an Xbox One game on Xbox Series X, there's a lot more resource headroom because it's written for those lower spec systems. So once you get the upgrade, you might run into more problems because the game is going to take more resources to put up the, what if they do ray tracing or faster speeds or anything like that, to put it up to spec to be a next gen version of that game. And so that is, again, a problem in itself, and something that we could see, and we may even end up talking about if or whenever those next-gen patches come out early this year. I don't know. But that is, since it's both of our number ones, I've talked about the pre-ordering and the lead-up to launch. Seth, why don't you give us the rundown of what the fuck happened after launch?
So the video game came out, and just like that, the largest dumpster fire that I can remember since the Xbox One announcement erupted. I can't think of another, catastrophic failure quite like this one in the past 4 or 5 years. It's bad. It was bad. And so what ended up happening is that no footage had been shown of these onto these base consoles. So now we start to see these games coming out, and you start to see just how bad it is, from texture pop in to frame rate to straight up hard crashes. This game was just fundamentally broken. And the thing that kind of keeps coming up for me in this is, in full disclosure, I have beaten Cyberpunk. I played it on PC. I played through the entire game. I beat the campaign. And the minute I rolled credits, I dropped it because I said, you know what? There's more for me to do, but I know this game is it is at its worst state right now, and it is only going to get better, and I want to wait until it is the game that it should be, not the game that they rushed out. And I'm going to speak very bluntly here, to get a bonus, right? And it's not their fault because they wanted a bonus for the holidays. It's the fault of the publisher for creating that bonus structure of ship a game by this year and make sure it has a Metacritic score. I got news for gamers out there. Manipulating this sounds like tinfoil hatty, but manipulating things like the media, that is what PR is today. It is all about how can we get this on Reddit. I have been in a job interview for a website. Now, this was back years ago, and I'm not going to disclose the website, but it is a website that about video games. And a question that was asked to me is, are you capable of getting content to go viral on Reddit without the people knowing it is from a brand? That is what they wanted me to know. And this was back when I was doing the social media marketing thing. Mm-hmm. So if that was going on in 2014, you better believe they hired someone who knew how to do it and have been doing it for the last 6 years, right? So don't think that just because you figure this stuff out that this stuff isn't manipulated. And this is just an example of someone getting caught doing it, right? Because they wanted, the bonus structure has already been disclosed. It was 90 on Metacritic and launched by the end of 2020. And they did that, right? They got a 90 on Metacritic by the game's launch, and it launched in 2020. Well, however,
to give them credit, to at least give some of the people credit, they did come out and say that the developers were going to get their bonuses regardless of the Metacritic.
Well, yeah, once you're caught with your hand in the cookie jar, you gotta start. And that's I said this back at Halo, but remember I said if Halo had come out this year, it would have been in the top spot. The reason Cyberpunk's in the top spot is because they tried to make it come out this year. And moving past this, what ended up happening was you got a company that did some very poor decision making early on. But Cameron, there comes a time in every biggest fail story where the shit factory has been built right next to the fan factory that's been built. And on the other side of that shit factory is the firework factory, right? So that all the factories have been built next to each other. Then comes the moment when the dude and the firework factory lights up a cigarette and decides to take a smoke break. All right. And that was when we got yet another yellow wall of text that
Yep.
pretty much described this very, I'm going to use the word humble, but don't think it was humble because again, this was disaster reaction scenario. And so they were very humble in being like, oh, we really messed up, guys. We hope you can forgive us. Anybody who wants, and then they said the cursed words. You want to talk about opening the Ark of the Covenant and staring straight down into it? It is saying the words refund on a video game that is, oh, thank you. Thank you, Siri, for getting upset with me. Oh, look, she said you're welcome. Okay. It is to utter those cursed words because when they said refund, a series of explosions took place next to the shit factory, which blew it into the fan factory. And that is, Sony and Microsoft do not have digital refund systems set up at all. They have a customer support team who is empowered to make decisions when they need to in order to save the company a little bit of face. They do not have a large-scale reimbursement system for a video game. Why, you ask? Because financial forecasting and the way the business works just doesn't do it. Like, there are no digital refunds because they don't need them right now, and they've never needed them before. And they're not going to, like, no one's going to come out and be like, we're offering digital refunds today. Steam did it once, and I can guarantee you that there was a lot of people who were very hesitant about, like, I would be curious to know
the big reason for the big reason for digital, for like refunds of digital properties are not bots but fraud.
Yeah.
And the fact that, like, oh, my game doesn't work, I want a refund, but I still want, I'll just keep the property of the game even though nothing's wrong with it. And that's what their fear is that people that are just want, they're going to keep the game, but they want their money back. And the company loses money, but they're still enjoying and playing the game, which isn't fair to them.
Because what stops someone from saying, oh, I don't want the digital game anymore, unplug Ethernet cable, play the game offline with the current patch, and then they get their money back, and then they get to finish the game, and then they plug back into internet, and then they lose. It's that kind of stuff. So when they said refund, they basically cursed Microsoft and Sony in particular, with the burden of their bad decision, right? Like, now, over the holidays, these support teams were responding to thousands, I'm sure, of ticket requests to get refunds, right? And to make matters even worse, there was kind of a soft window set up for these refunds of, I think they said until like December the 10th, or no, it was like December the 20th or something like that. So obviously,
I will read you this paragraph about the refunds. I'm not going to read the whole thing from Cyberpunk 2077, but I want to read it verbatim so everyone's listening and watching understands why we're upset and why this got biggest fail this year. And I quote from their official Twitter account. Finally, we would always like everyone who buys our games to be satisfied with their purchase. We would appreciate it if you would give us a chance, but if you are not pleased with the game on your console and don't want to wait for updates, you can opt to refund your copy. For copies purchased digitally, please use the refund system of PlayStation or Xbox respectively. For boxed versions, please first try to get a refund at the store where you bought the game. Everyone knows when you open physical software from a retail store, you cannot return it because of fraud, because of the whole, we can take the disc, we can burn it, and then return it, get our money back, and we still have a working copy of the game. You cannot do that. They knew it when they wrote this. Everyone knew this.
Yeah.
And then they finally give you the, should it not be possible, you can contact them at Help Me Refund. And they only gave you, from the time this was tweeted out, this tweet was December 14th, they said that you could contact them up until December 21st. So 1 week to get refunds in.
And 4 days before Christmas, when most people would probably be receiving the game. So, all in all, we get to this state now where They've tried very hard to save their face, and they've said, we've got 2 patches coming in January and February. Here is my thoughts, Cameron, on this situation. Anytime, and I'm one of these people, but anytime someone says to me, oh, there's no issue to launch the game on the old console when the new consoles come out. I was one of those people. I was like, no, there's like this cross-generation stuff is not going to really impact because PC's been doing it for years, right? Mm-hmm. But in the case of this game, this is proof that philosophy is very wrong, because the way video games work is, especially AAA games, they are sold primarily based on fidelity and quality of gameplay, right? That is the 2 biggest reasons that people buy a game. Oh my God, it looks good and it's fun to play, right? And I would even say that like it looks good is starting to maybe come down in priority, but it's still pretty damn high. Don't believe me? Look at Halo. So the problem here is that this game I feel like it was crammed on a console that could not run it. I think that there's this concept in the world of design and in product called scope creep, and it's where you start by, okay, we want to change the color of the buy button, and then 2 weeks later you've redesigned the whole website. And it is the idea that you start to be, well, while we're in there fixing the buy button, why don't we change what it says? Oh, well, why don't we change what we say? Why don't we go ahead and just change the style of the button? Well, while we're changing the style of the button, let's just go ahead and reskin the whole site. Like, it's that level, right? And I think this is a game that suffers from that. They had an idea. They were like, we're going to make a really good cyberpunk Fallout game. And then they were like, what if we got all this ray tracing in there? What if we got all this crazy tech, this open world tech, all these people walking on the streets, right? And the scope got real big. And then the developers were building it and they were like, oh shit, we can't, like, all these people can't be simulated at once because these CPUs are mediocre 7 years ago. So they definitely can't run very well now. So you started to do this, they started to cut the corners that they typically do. And that's like, okay, crowds disappear when you're not looking at them. Well, the problem is when they don't reappear. And that's one of the bugs, right?
And that's like piggybacking off of that and what you're saying. I reference this podcast as I listened to this whole episode, and they were so informative and like reiterate some of the other stuff that I've heard and I know. This, speaking on what you're talking about, the concept you're talking about, Seth, this game was announced and revealed in 2012.
Yes.
So it came out in 2020. So being generous, we have an 8-year development cycle. Let me put a note. That is longer than Anthem had in their development cycle. And that's not even including like whatever post-production stuff was done before 2012 to at least get the, like, you know, the trailer done for 2012. So that means this was announced 1 year before the last gen consoles, PS4 and Xbox One, were even released, which means that this game was originally planned and targeted for those consoles, and then along the way, years afterwards, the next gen systems, the current gen systems we have now, were revealed, and they were like, ooh, as you talked about, Seth, let's go for those. And they completely forgot about the current gen consoles that millions of people have all around the world.
And that's why I think that at best, putting the early access tag would have been a wise decision. Shareholders would have hated it because that tag is generally seen as a half step. I'll use Larian Studios' Baldur's Gate 3. Like, I have zero excitement for that game being out until it's out, right? Same went for Hades, right? Like, people were not really impressed by that game until they finished it, right? And that's when they actually added that stuff in. Now, if it allows you to develop the game and learn as you go, then yes, I think that's a great decision. But given the timeline, this game would have launched in early access in like 2018, right? And we would have finally launched this year. However, because they took that, like, we're going to release it on, 5 different consoles? And they even talked about this in one of their yellow text things. Oh, it's really hard to launch on 5 consoles at once. Or 7 consoles, I think they said, because when you count in the pro iterations. Then don't do it! Then don't do it! When you get to the point where you're like, man, this thing does not run on it, you are going to get a lot less of a PR hit, and definitely a lot less of a monetary hit, when you say, you know what? We're going to need to delay this game for another 6 months. And we understand by that time that a lot of people will have already upgraded to new consoles. So this will be the first game that doesn't launch on base.
I've heard a lot of people say if they needed to launch something now, it would have been okay for a lot of people since it was running okay on top-end PCs. Release the PC version only, and then hold back the consoles until next year.
The shareholders, Cameron, the consoles are half the market.
Yeah, and which really points to what the problem is and the root of the problem is, and who they were really serving by releasing this game in 2020 were the shareholders. Because, like, I'm looking at all the articles, the fact that a guy named, that people reference a lot on Twitter and online, of Games Radar and a writer named Hirun Cryer, title of the article from, I think, sometime in October or earlier in the year, Cyberpunk 2077 runs surprisingly well on current gen consoles, according to CD Projekt's CEO. They knew it wasn't running, even though they said in their big little yellow text, and I quote, "We would like to start by apologizing to you for not showing the game on base last-gen consoles before it premiered, and in consequence, not allowing you to make a more informed decision about your purchase. We should have paid more attention to making it play better on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One." And that's bullshit. This is, Seth, this is, for me...
Get him, Cameron!
This is Sean Murray, No Man's Sky launch levels of tomfoolery bullshit. Because the more I uncover the layers and the more I dig deep into this, to me, this is clearly, let's get money. This is a certified hit. People are ready to play Cyberpunk. They're going to pay whatever you want. They're going to get, you're going to have to get 2 jobs just to play this. It's bullshit like that.
Man,
and
don't do that.
And the fact, and what's even more infuriating about this is that they had 8 million pre-orders of this game. On day one, they recouped their development costs on this game, which I'm happy for the developers on, but I'm mad about the corporations and stuff and the bonuses that are attributed to that. With refunds completed, they sold 13 million copies of this game as of the end of last year.
Yeah.
That infuriates me, that bullshit like this, we call them out and this is wrong. They shouldn't have talked up the last gen versions like they did. They should have been more transparent about what was going on. If it needed to be delayed, it needed to be delayed. Halo Infinite, that is why they're not number 1.
Yep.
And the fact that they didn't is a clear nod that I give developers the break a little bit because it's usually the corporate guys and the executives at the top. They wanted the money. And as I learn more, again, I implore you to go to Virtual Economy Podcast and listen to what Mike Futter and Amanda Farrow...
I got to subscribe. Buddy.
Yeah, listen to that podcast and listen to that specific episode. The fact that they were... CD Projekt, it's an independent studio. They are the biggest studio in Poland. They are one of the if you really look at their holdings, they're one of the largest companies on, I don't want to say on par, but close to EA's and Activision's.
Yeah, last I heard, they were valued higher than Ubisoft, but then I think after the Cyberpunk hit happened, they were under Ubisoft again, as far as the EU.
They lost $1 billion in value after because of this whole thing. I would compare they are akin to a Rockstar. They are like Rockstar.
Yeah.
In the fact that they're an independent studio, but they make a game every couple of years, but they make oodles of money off of it. Yeah. And this game should have been delayed. It should have been delayed to 2021. And this problem, they should have taken the time to do it, but because it was 8 years from release, maybe even further, because corporations wanted to get the game out and get money. It had already been delayed 3 times. It would have crushed us. We would have been hurting, but we wouldn't have had this conversation right now. Maybe the shareholders would have taken a hit on it if it had gotten delayed to 2021, but I bet it wouldn't have been as big of a hit as it is now. This game should have been delayed. This is ridiculous. The more I learned about this, the more it infuriates and upsets me that a studio with one of my favorite RPGs that I love to death in The Witcher 3, and I still haven't beat it, but I still love it to death, and I still play it from time to time, and I still want to beat it. All this shit happens. And like you said, it was shit hitting the fan. I don't think I've ever said this specifically in Game of the Years past. To me, the Cyberpunk 27 CD Projekt Red and the Cyberpunk 2077 launch has earned their award as biggest fail of 2020.
Yes.
They
Very
have earned
much so.
it.
Very much so. And I would love for nothing more than for this to be a great redemption story where we hear about corporate cleanout up top. New people come up and they spend the next 12 months getting this game looking to be the sharpest looking thing, where it runs pretty well on a previous gen base models, but then the ray tracing and all the nice updates come out for next gen. And then by this time next year, maybe this would be something that we look at as a No Man's Sky level, redemption story. But no matter what happens, Cameron, and since I've invoked No Man's Sky, I will say this. No Man's Sky is a great redemption story. However, it is not what it could have been because of its early failings. You either are I'll say a masterpiece, or you're a bad game that becomes pretty good, right? I don't think you get to promote yourself to masterpiece unless you set out with that.
You either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. Let's not
because the time for making decisions and pivoting is before you ask for money. Once you ask for money, you should have a pretty clear direction of where you're going with the thing and what you're trying to do with the game. And you shouldn't mislead people by masking your words or using clever PR or whatever it is to deceive. I mean, it's deceiving people. And I really feel bad. One of my very best friends, she got this game on PlayStation 4. She could have gotten it on PC, but she had a base model PlayStation 4 and she prefers playing on the couch. And she has told me horror stories, bugged quests, completely game-breaking bugs, crashes to the dashboard. And I've had some crazy stuff. Like one of my favorites was, some dudes T-posing into a ship and then the ship flying away and they're just T-posing in the air.
I've had the T-posing of people in the car. Like my character got in the car and then he just T-poses and he's sitting out on the top of it.
Like that kind of harmless Bethesda level stuff, that's goofy. You end up on YouTube videos and then a month later you patch it out and it's fixed. But when you can't play the game and you literally are walking around an empty city and the vision of the game that you had is failed to be communicated because of the hardware that someone has, that is definitely a fail. That is not only a big fail, that is the biggest fail of 2020. I wholeheartedly agree with you because that is also my biggest fail of 2020 without question.
And we haven't even talked about it, but I want to mention as well the fact that because of this whole thing, developers for CD Projekt now, they didn't get a holiday. They had to stay in the office to work tirelessly to send out hot fixes and small patches to try and fix immediate issues. And because of what they've posted, they're going to have to continue through January, through February, through March to continue to roll out patches for this game, to fix the major issues. And then this is probably also delayed the next gen patch that would have probably come out this spring, is now we're looking at, if we're lucky, the summer.
And here's the curse that comes with it. So they've already talked about, because there's a surprise, video games have a plan after they come out too. And one of the things that CD Projekt Red has built their reputation on is free post-launch DLC, right? They're very big on it. So now you can head over to Twitter and look at their tweet about the first batch of free DLC coming in January. You hit up those replies, I promise you they're not people talking about how excited they are for the free DLC. The conversation has shifted, and basically, I feel like I'm in a science lab, Cameron. And you have those situations where there's just like, there's this balloon that the instructor has, and they light a fire underneath it, and it goes, and you just see this huge flame, and it just burns up all the alcohol inside or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. That is the goodwill that CD Projekt Red had. And it wasn't like a slow trickle out or bleed out of their goodwill. It was a volatile reaction explosion. Antimatter touching matter levels of
100%
explosion. And overnight, they have been moved from top tier triple S plus rank developer to being uttered in the same sentence multiple times in this conversation and many other conversations as BioWare. And that is not the kind of reputation you want right now. So, what a year, man. What a year.
Great minds think alike. I don't know. Like, again, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to. There was nothing else that could be. Like I said, they earned that spot. They earned the spot. I'm curious to know what you think when you listen to that episode of Virtual Economy, because it's like they have a full hour plus conversation on this whole debacle, and the more I listen to it and their insights, and like I bring this up too because these are two people who have worked in the industry. They have friends in the industry. We didn't even talk about the fact that, we talked a little bit about the refund policy and more or less how Microsoft and Sony got thrown under the bus because now people are banging at their door trying to get refunds, and they're like, we have no special deal with Cyberpunk 2077. Yeah. And the fact that Sony delisted the game and it is still delisted right now digitally on PlayStation Store, which, hearing from them, that has never happened for a game ever, period. Yep. The fact that, from what they've heard as well, Microsoft would have done the same thing, but Microsoft has a partnership with CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077 for promotional material, so they can't delist it off the store until the bugs get fixed. So all this other stuff. We talked a little bit about it. There's so much more layers to this. That's why I encourage you guys, go listen to that Virtual Economy episode.
If there's one thing I hope we get from this, it is I would like for the discussion around refunds for digital products to start, particularly looking towards Steam. I mentioned it early on. I think there were some developers that had some resistance to that early on, but I think that now pretty much the dust is settled.
Well, I think Steam, it's like 2 or 3 hours with the game. It's a small amount of time, but it gives you enough time for most games to get a taste. If you've played it less than that, you can still return it.
Exactly, and I think that's just an option. I'd like for that to... I hope that is something that people are looking at, and I think that it's something you have to look at now that, as of 3 weeks ago, we now have consoles that are digital only, and you're going to have people who got those consoles for Christmas and are going to be stuck with games that do not work really well. And just being honest, I think this is something Microsoft's more like to do before Sony. Sony's was very upset by the refund situation, so much so they delisted the game.
Yeah.
Because in Sony's eyes, you either are a video game that you can sell or you're a video game that's not sellable. So, they're very black and white when it comes to that kind of stuff. Microsoft seemed to be like, you know what, we'll offer you a refund if you need it, but we're going to keep selling it because we know that smart delivery, it's going to get there. So, anyways, I think the point here is that the most anticipated game of 2020 is an Xbox Series X exclusive.
For now, it is, yeah.
I kid. I digress. I kid. We do have some honorable mentions to talk about, though.
Yes.
Because, boy, have we really drilled Cyberpunk.
Take a breath. I'll go through mine.
Okay.
I feel like you always go through yours first, so I'm going to go through mine first.
Sure.
Some honorable mentions. Actually, let me do the recap real fast. So, biggest fail, the winner, by unanimous decision from this council, is Cyberpunk 2077 launch by myself and Seth. Seth adding the Halo Infinite debacle and Epic v Apple to his list of runner-ups. My runners-up are also the Halo Infinite debacle and also just next-gen pre-orders. This whole holiday season was just a mess. Congrats to them. I don't know if I clap for that or boo or what. You take your pick.
I know exactly what we do. What do I do with my hands?
Honorable mentions I have for biggest fail that were lucky enough not to make the cut. Let's see, which one do I have? I have a general one, and I didn't pick it. I didn't put it on here because I felt it was too generally broad, and we highlight it when it's talked about, but I feel like there hasn't been much movement on it yet. I think it's starting to turn around, but crunching games. I think there was a big highlight on that. Cyberpunk 2077 was an example. The Last of Us Part 2 was an example. There were a couple of other smaller highlights throughout the year, but crunch continues to be just a bad thing. that the industry needs to find a way to avoid in order to give game developers the quality of life they deserve and providing us with the entertainment they're giving us. So I kind of pulled. There were other fails that were bigger than that, so I kind of pulled that off my list at the last minute.
That's a good one, though. That's a really good one.
It is a good one. Another one that I pulled off my list, and I had a specific reason for it: the PlayStation 5 tech reveal, not the console reveal, but the one in early March with what's his face? With Mark Cerny in front of the podium with the Mystery Science Theater-esque silhouettes in the front, talking about the tech specs of the PlayStation
that was
5.
Cringy.
Boy, that was a snore fest. But the reason I didn't include this as the biggest fail is because the only reason we saw that was because of COVID and the fact that the Game Developers Conference was canceled. It was kind of talked about later on that entire talk was something that was going to be at the GDC, which, again, as I talked about at the time, that's a great conversation for your developers and your people hardcore in the industry to know about and learn on. But for the general public, that is not something we want to watch. That's not something we want to see. That is basically giving us extra strength Ambien. I can play that right when I go to bed tonight, and I will go straight to sleep because of Mark Cerny's smooth, dulcet tones. But that is the big reason, because I didn't put it on the list because it really wasn't something that was necessarily meant for us, but it gave us a little bit of insight into what Sony was doing with the PlayStation 5. But I still at least wanted to highlight it as an honorable mention for biggest fail this year. And then the last one I had, this was a deeper cut, but I remember the story surrounding this, and it wasn't as big, so that's why I didn't include it. The salary issues that Blizzard had with their employees. I don't know if you remember this, Seth, but like the whole thing about like Blizzard's back and forth with their employees, and people started talking about salaries and finding out that like Blizzard greatly underpays their workers compared to even competition within the same region.
Yep.
South SoCal. Like I think I remember one guy who compared, like he worked at Blizzard and then went over to Riot, and like his path to promotions and his monetary gains and compensation, he had a path at Riot Games, but he did not have it at Blizzard. And he was getting, for his job title, he was getting way underpaid to what other companies and other developers paid their job titles are. And it kind of spiraled into this whole big thing that I don't, to my knowledge, really hasn't been resolved yet. So that is why I put that as one of my honorable mentions as well.
I want to add one thing to that real quick. If there is anything that I can tell you as someone, and I really hope that nobody ever has to go through some of the stuff I've had to go through in my career, but if you are in a position where you are being mistreated by an employer, I was a person who before was I tied my self-worth to my career. And if you start seeing yourself getting abused like that, please find a way out. No matter how good of a dream job it sounds. The valuable lesson I learned, I've worked at companies that are super fun and awesome, and they have all the ping pong tables and the fun benefits and whatnot. But it is not worth it when it gets to a point where you are being used and abused. Get out as soon as you can. And I know a lot of people can't, but if there's one thing that I hope we come out of COVID is opportunity for remote work, because I think that while I've been working remotely this year, my quality of life has gone up. I have lost over 30 pounds being able to actually relax during the day and take breaks versus this constant pressure to always look busy. Like I can take a break and go on a 10-minute walk and not feel like I'm stealing money because I know that I'm going to go back and I'm going to work for another 90 straight minutes on design work, right? And uninterrupted design work. And so please just take time for yourself. And if the company you're working for is mistreating you, start doing what you need to do to get out of there, because it sucks and it will suck your soul right out of your body. Thank you for letting me rant.
Go ahead. It's your turn now. Those are my honorable mentions.
Turn. All right. Again, I got to go high noon on some of these because, surprise, I got a lot. First off, I just have the mess of Ubisoft. Everything that happened with Ubisoft's Me Too movement. I think you talked about this in Biggest Impact.
Yep.
But I think this is a biggest fail because this was something that could have been prevented. Just like I said before, nobody cares about you when you are working at a company like, that. If you are getting mistreated, you're not, HR is not really going to be able to help you if it's a systemic issue with upper level leadership, right? Like, unless it is a very clear, like, bad case. We've seen Me Too give some steam to that, but basically just everything about Ubisoft, the sexual misconduct, the poor quality of work, everything. I'm so glad that company was able to cut off the fat and really get things fixed.
The only good thing that came out of that whole thing is we have confirmation that Cassandra is the best character in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and she was clearly meant to be the main character of that game.
I mean,
if you're not playing as Cassandra, you're playing the game wrong.
Yes, and I will go ahead. Let me go ahead in 2020. Let me go ahead and hit you with a 2020 here. Male V, Garbo compared to female V. Just mic drop. Female V is 100 times better. She is a voice actor. The male V is a actor, and one of the things that you need to note about actors is that they go a lot on their visual, both the way they look and present themselves, and their visual acting. Visual acting does not translate to voice acting 100% of the time, and boy, it does not in Cyberpunk. So, female V all the way. Next up, Last of Us Part 2 leaks.
This was one of mine as well. This was on my list, but I mentioned it as an honorable mention. No. Yeah, I thought about this one.
Made Twitch chat unreadable for a solid month before that game came out. What a disaster. That's all I'm going to say. This is a big one. Mick Gordon's excommunication from Doom. I use that word very specifically.
Oh, man. I remember this.
This is the drama. This was one of those that I thought was a sure in for biggest fail. I was like, this is biggest fail. Because it is the story of, they release a version of the soundtrack that's not his mixes, so he posts some stuff on his blog about it, and then they rebuttal him, and it was just this little cat bickering back and forth, and basically it has said he is no longer going to be doing music for Doom ever again. He is completely excommunicated, and we will not be working. He's blacklisted, right? So hope you enjoyed the Doom soundtrack, because that's the only time you're going to get it composed by Mick Gordon. So
remember that.
Riggedy rip. This next one is basically, I put it as Nintendo's war on fans. I think this year there were a couple of weird situations where Nintendo was really Nintendo about shutting down fan events, shutting down esports events, especially given COVID. I know that there was one esports event in particular that was using a version of Super Smash Bros. Melee that was modded to allow online play, because obviously you can't play in person anymore. And they basically sent the shut it down or we're going to destroy you. And of course that caused that tournament to belly up overnight, because most of the people were coming to watch Melee. So not a specific event. That's why it was a runner-up. But I wish Nintendo would get a little bit more friendly about some of that stuff. Their fans are really important to them, but also Nintendo going to Nintendo.
Yeah.
Next are just names of games. Marvel's Avengers. I don't need to say anything else about that one. Still regret buying that over
Ghost of Tsushima.
The next game name that I will just drop here is Crucible.
Ooh.
Amazon's MOBA.
I know what you're talking about. That got released and then summarily canceled.
Unreleased. Next one is Microsoft shuts down Mixer. I put this on biggest fail because, man, they put a lot of money into buying talent for that thing, and then literally a year later they shut it down. So the real winner here is Ninja, who made $30 million for a 3-year contract that he only had to do 1 year of. So
deuces, yep.
Good on you.
Because
I also had buying next-gen console. My exact quote was, buying a next-gen console is a shit show. That was that. And lastly, I remarked on the Casey Hudson and Mark Dareth announcing their exit from BioWare, mainly because that was a very obvious please resign situation.
Yeah. Something happened.
Given the negative feedback from basically since Casey came back, everything has been a miss. Everything was a miss before then. I think the last hit they had was Dragon Age Inquisition. And that was we talked about this before, Cameron. I think that was a hit of luck, because if that game had come out 6 months later, it would have come out after The Witcher 3, and it would have been game of the year.
No one would have been talking about it.
No one would have been talking about it later, but I digress. I know that was my longest list of runner-ups, but all of those were really weird situations that I thought were kind of fails this year, but not quite as bad as those big ones. So
yeah.
Thank you for letting me rant a little bit.
That is what specifically this category is for, I think.
I feel good. I feel better. The therapy is complete.
And so, guys, that is it for Biggest Fail and Episode 5 of the Game of the Year 2020 Awards Spectacular here at Rocket Punch. Thank you guys so much for listening, of course. If you're still tuning in, be sure to jump over the next episode that is up on the docket. Is Episode 6 in this batch, which is, now that the salt has been purified, we're now going to look to bigger and brighter things, and we're going to talk about the good things from 2020 in our For the Win category. So don't miss out on that. We will be back to talk about that in just a minute, so stay tuned.